It was July 19th, 1996, and the eyes of the world had turned to Atlanta. 85,000 people filled the Olympic Stadium, their voices rising and falling like ocean waves. 3.5 billion more watched from living rooms and bars and hospital beds across the planet. They had come to witness the opening ceremony of the Centennial Olympic Games, a celebration of athletic excellence and human achievement. They did not know they were about to witness something far greater. High above the stadium floor, hidden in the shadows of the upper platform, Muhammad Ali waited. His hands shook with the tremors of Parkinson's disease, a constant companion for 12 years now. His face, once so animated and expressive, had settled into the mask that the illness had given him. But his eyes, those eyes that had stared down Sonny Liston and George Foreman, and every challenger who had ever dared to face him, those eyes were still alive with fire. No one in the stadium knew he was there. That was the plan. The organizers had kept his identity secret until the final moment, afraid that any leak would ruin the surprise. Even Ali's own family had not been told. Only a handful of people in the world knew that the most famous athlete of the 20th century was about to emerge from the darkness and light the Olympic cauldron. Imagine yourself in that stadium now, the summer heat of Georgia pressing down like a warm blanket, the smell of popcorn and hot dogs drifting from the concession stands, the excited chatter of athletes from 197 nations gathered on the field in their colorful uniforms, waiting for something magical to happen. The torch had been making its way across America for weeks, passed from hand to hand like a prayer traveling toward heaven. It had crossed mountains and rivers and small towns where children lined the streets to watch it pass. Now, it was climbing the final steps toward its destination, carried by swimmers and runners and basketball players, each one passing the flame to the next. Evander Holyfield had carried it. So had Janet Evans, the swimmer who had won 4 Olympic gold medals. The flame moved higher and higher, closer and closer to its final destination. And still, the world did not know who would be waiting at the top. Close your eyes and feel the anticipation building. 85,000 hearts beating faster, millions of breaths held around the world. The flame climbing through the darkness like a single point of hope rising toward the stars. And then, from the shadows, he emerged. At first, people were not sure what they were seeing. A figure in white, standing alone on the platform, the torch extended toward him. Then the spotlight found him, and the face that had graced magazine covers and television screens for 3 decades was suddenly visible to everyone. Muhammad Ali, the greatest, alive, present, trembling, magnificent. The stadium fell silent. Not the silence of disappointment or confusion, but the silence of recognition. The silence that comes when something sacred enters the room and demands to be acknowledged. According to those who were there, the silence lasted only a moment before it broke into something else entirely. A sound that started low and grew until it filled every corner of the stadium. Not just applause, though there was applause. Not just cheering, though there were cheers. This was something deeper, something that came from a place beyond words. This was 85,000 people simultaneously understanding that they were witnessing history. Ali stood on the platform, the torch in his right hand, his left arm shaking visibly. The disease had taken so much from him: his speed, his voice, his ability to dance and shuffle and move like water flowing uphill. But it had not taken his dignity. It had not taken his courage. And in this moment, it had not taken his ability to move the world. Let your breathing slow now, matching the rhythm of that eternal moment. The flame flickering in the summer breeze, the trembling hand that held it steady through sheer will. The eyes of the world fixed on a man who had once proclaimed himself the greatest and was now proving it in an entirely different way. He moved toward the cauldron, each step careful and deliberate. In his prime, Ali had danced across boxing rings with a speed that seemed to defy physics. Now, each step was a negotiation with a body that no longer obeyed his commands. But he moved. He kept moving, and the world moved with him. The journey from the edge of the platform to the cauldron was perhaps 30 feet. In his youth, Ali could have covered that distance in a heartbeat. Now, it took an eternity that no one wanted to end. Picture the faces in that crowd, the athletes on the field, many of whom had grown up watching Ali on television, now seeing him in person for the first time. The older spectators, who remembered the young Cassius Clay winning gold in Rome, remembered the draft refusal and the exile. and the comeback, and the defeats. The children who knew him only as a legend, a face on posters, a name in history books, all of them united in this moment, all of them holding their breath. According to witnesses, there were tears everywhere. Janet Evans, who had handed him the torch, was crying. Dick Ebersol, the television executive who had helped plan the ceremony, was crying. In the broadcast booth, announcers struggled to maintain their composure. And in living rooms around the world, people who had never met Muhammad Ali found themselves weeping for reasons they could not explain. But Ali did not cry. His face remained calm, focused, present. He had a job to do, and he was going to do it. Breathe with him now. Feel the weight of the torch in your hand. Feel the heat of the flame against your skin. Feel the eyes of billions upon you, and let that pressure transform into peace. This is what champions know. This is what Ali had always known. The moment is not the enemy. The moment is the gift. He reached the cauldron and paused. The mechanism required him to extend the torch to a fuse that would carry the flame upward to the great bowl at the top of the stadium. A simple action, a moment's work. But in Ali's trembling hands, nothing was simple anymore. The world watched as he steadied himself. The flame danced at the end of the torch, alive and eager. His arms shook. His hand shook. Everything shook. But he did not drop the torch. He did not step back. He did not surrender. And then the fuse caught. The flame raced upward along the wire, climbing toward the cauldron like joy ascending toward the heavens. And when it reached the top, when the great Olympic cauldron burst into brilliant fire, the stadium exploded. Close your eyes and hear that roar. Not just applause, not just cheering. This was the sound of collective release, of pent-up emotion finally given permission to flow. This was the sound of humanity acknowledging one of its own. This was the sound of love. Ali stood there for a moment longer, the empty torch still in his hand, the fire blazing above him. His face, which the disease had frozen into stillness, seemed almost to soften. Some who were watching said they saw him smile. Others said they saw tears finally forming in his eyes. Perhaps both were true. Perhaps neither. Some moments are too sacred for certainty. Let yourself drift into that image. The man in white against the dark sky. The fire burning overhead. The roar of the crowd slowly fading into something gentler. Something like a lullaby sung by thousands of voices at once. This is the image that would appear on front pages around the world the next morning. This is the image that would define the 1996 Olympics more than any gold medal or world record. But what was Ali thinking in that moment? What was happening behind those eyes that had seen so much? According to those closest to him, Ali had been nervous before the ceremony. Not nervous about the attention or the pressure, but nervous about the disease, about whether his body would cooperate long enough to complete the task. He had practiced the walk to the cauldron. He had practiced holding the torch steady. He had done everything possible to prepare for a moment that could not truly be prepared for. And then, when the moment came, he had simply been present. He had let go of the fear and the doubt and the thousand what-ifs that plague every human mind. He had become, once again, the fighter who entered the ring not knowing if he would win, but knowing absolutely that he would not quit. Imagine now the journey that had brought him to this platform. The bicycle stolen in Louisville when he was 12 years old. The theft that had sent him to a boxing gym seeking revenge and found instead a calling. The Golden Gloves Championships. The Rome Olympics, where an 18-year-old Cassius Clay had won gold and believed the world was his. The rise to heavyweight champion. The name change. The religious conversion. The refusal to fight in Vietnam. The exile. The comeback. The rumble in the jungle. The thriller in Manila. The slow, terrible decline as Parkinson's tightened its grip. All of it had led here. Every punch thrown and received. Every word spoken and silenced. Every victory and every defeat. It had all been preparation for this moment, when an old fighter with trembling hands would show the world what courage really looks like. Feel your breathing deepen now, settling into the rhythm of rest. The stadium is growing quiet. The ceremony continues, but the peak has passed. Athletes march, and flags wave, and speeches are given, but everyone knows that the true heart of the evening has already been revealed. Ali was escorted from the platform by Janet Evans and other officials, their hands ready to steady him if he stumbled. He did not stumble. He walked with the same deliberate dignity he had shown throughout, each step a small victory over a body that had turned against him. Later that night, according to those who were with him, Ali returned to his hotel room and sat quietly for a long time. His wife Lonnie was there, as she always was, the steady presence that had anchored his life through the hardest years. They did not talk much. There was not much to say. Some experiences are too large for words. But Ali did say one thing that night, a sentence that would be repeated in the years to come. "I wanted them to see," he said, "that you can still go on. No matter what happens to you, you can still go on." Listen to those words as you drift toward sleep. Let them settle into your heart like seeds finding soil. You can still go on, no matter what happens, no matter what is taken from you, no matter how much you tremble, you can still carry the flame. The 1996 Olympics continued for 2 weeks after that opening ceremony. Records were broken, medals were won, heroes emerged, and disappointments faded. But when people remember those games, they remember the trembling man in white holding fire to the sky. They remember because it was not about sports. It was about something more fundamental. It was about the human capacity to endure, to transcend, to find beauty in the midst of suffering. It was about the truth that greatness is not measured in victories alone, but in the courage to show up when showing up is the hardest thing in the world. Let your eyes grow heavy now. Let the stadium lights fade to darkness. Let the roar of the crowd become the soft whisper of wind through trees at night. The flame still burns somewhere, passed from torch to torch across the years, waiting for the next person brave enough to carry it. Ali lived for 20 more years after that night in Atlanta. 20 years of slow decline, of silence where there had once been poetry, of stillness where there had once been dance. But he never stopped showing up. He attended events when his body screamed for rest. He shook hands when his hands could barely grip. He smiled when his face had forgotten how. And everywhere he went, people remembered. They remembered the flame. They remembered the trembling. They remembered the moment when the greatest fighter of all time won his most important victory without throwing a single punch. Sleep now, as the fire sleeps in the cauldron when the games are done. Sleep knowing that whatever challenges tomorrow brings, you have the capacity to face them. Sleep knowing that trembling is not weakness, that vulnerability is not defeat, that showing up is itself a form of victory. The stadium is empty now. The athletes have gone home. The medals have been awarded and the records have been set, and the world has moved on to other spectacles. But somewhere in the night sky, if you look closely enough, you can still see it. A single flame, trembling but undefeated, burning against the darkness. That is his legacy. That is your birthright. That is the light that never goes out. Rest now. The torch has been passed. And tomorrow, when you wake, you will carry it forward.